One of those people is going to be working to a couple extra weeks, but I believe is home now in Oklahoma, Senator James Lankford. Senator Lankford, welcome back.
Thanks, Brian. Glad to be with you.
So some of the changes that are on this bill, these are the type of changes that would get you to feel good about voting yes?
Yeah, better about voting yes, at least to vote to what's called the motion and proceed. Let's get on the bill. Let's start debating it and amending it. The previous version, I didn't want to even get on and debate it in a minute. It was too far from being done. This one makes some significant changes to allow greater options for people. So there's not just a straight here's the health care plan, take it or leave it. You're allowed a lot greater variety, whether it be catastrophic plans, whether it be other boutique plans, or the other plans that are already sitting there. So guaranteed issue is still there. Still have no pre-existing conditions. Still get on it when you're 26 years old and stay on your parents' insurance if you want to be able to do that. But this takes away the individual mandate, the employer mandate, removes most of the taxes from Obamacare, and most dramatically, it changes health care back to the states to be regulated rather than done by the federal government.
Yeah, add $70 billion to the $100 billion to drive down the cost of insurance. How does that work? Is that tax credits?
This actually goes back through the states, and it's focused in on how do you deal with high-risk pools. This is something we've talked a lot about the main plan and what they did several years ago with dealing with high-risk pools. You're going to pay more for people that have higher health care needs. You're either going to pay for it at higher premiums for everyone. That's what Obamacare does. Or you're going to take care of people that have the greatest amount of health care costs and take care of them separately. About 5% of the people have about 60% of the health care costs in the country. So if you can find a way to be able to help take care of those folks, then the health care rates for everybody else go down.
We're talking to Senator James Lankford. Slow growth of Medicaid spending, establish tax-free savings accounts, $45 billion for opioid treatment, and the any way to address that, and the 3.8% stays on of investment income for those who make over $250,000. So that's the type of thing that drives people like Rand Paul crazy. And he was out and about yesterday. He is down on this. He is out on this. Listen to him. Cut 3.
Do you think the new version is better than the old version?
No, I think it's worse. Really, I think we're keeping Obamacare as much as anything, and that's not our promise.
Your reaction?
Yeah, that's the frustration, is that this bill, there's no way to be able to take out all of it. Rand's been extremely consistent from the beginning. He's saying, I don't want to do anything to do replacement on this bill at all. I want to just repeal the parts that we can and not do any replacement at all. So let's just identify what we can repeal.
Right.
Even if it's a small amount, let's repeal it and do no replacement. The challenge that I have on that is I don't know what the replacement's going to look like. I don't know how you're going to get there. The assumption would be that you'd negotiate with Democrats to do that. I'd rather do it with Republicans if we can, to at least get the base of how we're going to replace. Is this everything out on Obamacare? Absolutely not. Things like you still have on your parents' insurance until 26 if you want to do that. Pre-existing conditions are still protected. All those things, those are in Obamacare. They stay in this one as well. I understand that. But
here's McCain.
As much as we can get done.
Tell me what's wrong with Senator McCain's plan, cut 7.
It should have gone through the committees of oversight so that the Democrats had a role to play, and then we probably could have gotten this thing done. Now I think prospects are dim.
Is he right?
So I would say it should have gone through committees for debates, but I don't think it should go through the committees for the actual legislation. So I would have had no issue with having a lot more public debate, and all the committees bring up insurance folks, bring up doctors, bring up everything else. Now, that's happened for the last 7 years. It's not like it hasn't happened at all, and no one's aware of what's going on in healthcare. But it would have been helpful to be able to bring it up. What I disagree on is if you start working the legislation through and say we're going to get Democrats on board on this to be able to do it, that's what the Democrats started with on Obamacare and said we're going to work through the committee and allow Republicans to have it, and then they just jammed through a straight Democrat bill at the very end. The belief that at some point the Democrats are going to say let's come on board, we're going to work with Republicans to be able to repeal Obamacare, I think is just not true. Most of the Democrats I've talked to have said yes, we'll help you, but you have to keep the individual mandates, you have to keep the employer mandate, You have to make sure D.C. continues to control all health care decisions, and I'm completely not on board with that.
So, Senator Lankford, you're always great to have on a myriad of issues, but I really read the Wall Street Journal editorial this week, and I wanted to detail on what is going on with Democrats and nominees. At first, Trump people did get off to a slow start. Hey, look, for a lot of reasons. They changed their transition team. They never have done this before. I'll give you that. But now the nominees are there, and Chuck Schumer has gone out of his way to make sure they don't get in position and really try to hamstring this administration. Tell us how.
Yeah, this has been the key point of the resist movement, that the president cannot move on his agenda if he can't hire his staff. This has literally never happened before in the history of the country, that there's been a slow walking or a blocking of a president getting his staff. To give you a point of example on that, when President Obama came in, by this point, 90% of his nominees were put in with what's called by voice vote. It was everyone looked at credentials, said, yeah, we may not agree with them in policy, but they have the right credentials. They're not corrupt. We'll allow those folks to be able to go in with a voice vote. And there's just maybe 10 or 15 people would move in at a time. And it was very rapid succession to be able to allow his staff to get on board. Only 10% of President Trump's nominees have been allowed to go by voice vote. We are far behind where we are. This past week, we were able to do 3 votes because Democrats did procedural motions every single day to be able to slow it down. Now, they can't stop the vote. It just takes 51 to be able to get it, but they can slow the process down. And if we go through a week where you can only get 3 people in, you'll never get them in.
And each is entitled to 30 hours, right? 30 hours of scrutiny and debate. So they do it, they start, they stop, and they start late. Now, listen, Senator, these aren't controversial people. They agree with these people. They're just stopping it just to hurt. This hurts the country. So, Senator, what are you proposing? What could be done? You're in the majority.
So I proposed that when we did the nuclear option on the Supreme Court, at the same time, we would also fix the nomination process. I think it's a total anomaly that we allow this 30 hours of debate for people. For instance, this past week, they demanded 30 hours of debate for all 3 people, but no one actually came to the floor and debated any of them. We just ran the time, but there was no debate. That's nonsense to me. So I had proposed we drop it down to a maximum of 8 hours for every person. So in a worst-case scenario, we could do 3 in a day, not to do 3 in a week. So we've got to be able to accelerate this process.
So does Mitch McConnell understand this is crisis time, and will he go there? Because he's also a traditionalist.
He is a traditionalist, but I think he agrees with me on this one. In fact, he met with all the committee chairs this past week. They had a long-term discussion about it. Many of those individuals came and visited with me. We've got to be able to fix this. Now, this can be done. In fact, I don't think 8 hours even should be used for most of these nominees. For most of these non-controversial nominees, do 2 hours of debate, 1 for each side, and then it's done, because they're very straightforward. They've already passed through committees. They've already had scrutiny. They've already had FBI background checks. It's not like they're contentious individuals. Right. Again, they may not agree with policy, but this is what the president does. The president gets to choose his own staff until now, and the Democrats won't even allow the president to choose his own staff and get busy on the work.
Then, Senator, I would be saying the same thing if it was President Obama or President Hillary Clinton. It hurts the country. There's no staff. And worse, a lot of these people hate President Trump and are trying to destroy his agenda. I mean, for me, I'd clean house and keep empty chairs, but he hasn't yet.
Right. Well, he has in a few areas, or a few people have just decided they're going to leave rather than work for him. But there are a lot of folks in the Obama administration that have stayed and saying, hey, it's better if we stay because we can keep our agenda. So the head, the secretary or the cabinet level official can say one thing, but we'll try to do something else underneath. We've got to be able to clear those people out. And so you've got a consistent voice in every single agency.
Senator, here's the president yesterday in France talking about his son meeting with the Russian attorney. Cut 14.
He took a meeting with a lawyer from Russia. It lasted for a very short period, and nothing came of the meeting. And I think it's a meeting that most people in politics probably would have taken.
Do you agree?
I think most people in politics that are novices absolutely would have taken that meeting. They had a reach out from someone that they knew that was in Russia saying, hey, we have information about Hillary Clinton and how she's working with the Russians, and we need to be able to share that with you. So here's what should have happened. When Don Jr. contacted Paul Manafort, who was the campaign manager at that point, the campaign manager should have had the experience to say, hey, well, hold on, this is a foreign power. Let's get a chance to slow down this. I don't blame Don Jr. I don't blame Jared Kushner for taking that meeting because they're new into politics in it. But the campaign manager should have known better at that point. What we'd like to know is just what was said, were there documents exchanged, was anything that come out of it? There's one thing to have a meeting and for them to say, hey, they didn't even talk about anything with Hillary Clinton. They changed the subject as soon as we got there. Okay, that's fine. Let's get all the information out. And if that's true, great. I wish they would have revealed this months ago, and so it could have been cleared up months ago. And I've said for a long time, I think the facts are on the president's side. Let's get all the facts out. Right. And then let the facts go where the facts go.
Senator, the thing about I said the same thing. Trey Gowdy, I think, is as fair-minded a guy as you're going to find anywhere in the country, said whatever, you have to go through the staff campaigners and administration officials and say everything's got to come out or you're fired, essentially. If you do not let me know, then you're embarrassing me and hurting the country and the administration. So now we find out NBC said there was another person in the room. It makes sense there had to be an interpreter, but this person goes back to Soviet intelligence. He's got dual citizenship, and we don't know the person's name yet. We'll eventually know it. Bottom line is, Don Trump Jr. didn't tell me that, and Trump officials didn't tell me that. NBC told me that, and that network lives to destroy this president.
Yeah, and that is the problem, that you continue to get this drip, drip, drip of information. It just keeps it all out there and keeps it going and makes it look like it's a bigger conspiracy. One thing that we do know from this, and we have known, and this repeats it again, is that the Russians were trying to reach out to be able to interfere in our election, and they're trying to do everything that they can to be able to interfere in this process. So that's clear from this. This is just one more clear example. What the Democrats are trying to say and others are trying to say is it's obvious that Trump was reaching out to them to try to get engaged with this. This clearly doesn't look good. This is another example of Russians reaching out to the Trump campaign. But what we don't see is them saying, yes, keep sending that stuff and keep cooperating with us or receiving information from a foreign power.
I would love for you to come on. I know you're going back to work next week and you work over the weekends too, but you're...
I actually am today. I've been all day on the phone back and forth working on healthcare policy, trying to negotiate some of the last-minute stuff to get this done.
True. And the president's working the phones from the plane. We just got a report now from one of our reporters working with senators. He's got to work governors, too. That'll also help you guys. Senator, the other thing is I want to stay on this, so please let me know how this happens on Fox and Friends and on here on this radio show, because I think you understand how desperate this is right now, because we're basically, there is no Trump administration. There's only 46 people, and they should have close to 200, and maybe as high as 400. And at least you're taking aggressive action. Senator, thanks so much.
You bet. I'll keep pushing on it.
Appreciate it. When we come back, your phone calls. You're listening to Brian Kilmeade.